Alright everyone, it's time for Occult Literature, video number 186, Spiritualism and Necromancy. Link in the description to my edition of this work from Amazon. Second and third links are to my books, blogs. There are other works of demonology available. This is mostly a work on demons. It's a refutation of spiritualism from the fire and brimstone perspective of the era. You've got to understand the mid to late 19th century. There was a trifecta of religious forces that all combated one another. If you read through the literature, they wrote manuscripts, reams and reams of little booklets basically antagonizing each other. You had the rationalists, the skeptics, people were atheistic or more deistic. They're like, well, this superstition stuff is bullshit. You had the fire and brimstone, led by the Methodist Church, actually, mostly at the time. It tended to be more on the Protestant side that this existed. They were mainly focused on defeating science as they perceived it as degenerated on the rationalistic side, and also the spiritualists, which they combated. And so these three poles sort of fought amongst themselves. And this is a tract against spiritualism from that specifically Methodist perspective, claiming that most media, basically it makes two claims. Two main claims, and then fleshes out sort of from scripture and other sources. It says, first and foremost, some mediums and stuff, they're frauds. They're basically, they're spiritually fallen. They're misleading people away from the true faith, but they don't talk to spirits or anything. Then the second group, and it says, well, we're perfectly willing to admit, though, that some of these people do contact spirits. It's just that they're demons. They're not actually the dead. Spiritualism tended to gravitate around the use of seances, clairvoyance, psychic sort of stuff, to contact the dead. Now, it goes further than that later, but that's sort of where it originates. The idea that spirits, the departed, can communicate with humans sort of arises post-telegraph. The idea of, wow, these messages can be from, in an electric form. It's not a letter. It's nothing I can see physically. It just sort of comes to me through this machine. How miraculous. I wonder if spirits can do that. That's basically the starting point of it. It's technology, oddly enough. Then they really freak them out if you could go back and show them like a YouTube video. Oh my God, how'd you trap the soul of a person inside of this small box? It'd be really, really funny. Just think about that one, how funny that would be. But this is specifically anti-spiritualistic, and the main claim is that they're basically exposing themselves to demonic spirits. Now this actually is the same perspective used by the fire and brimstone, sort of the more religious types today. They say the same things also about Ouija boards and things of that nature. That doesn't really come into spiritualism. That's more of the parlor magic side and gets into some other spooky stuff. It's quite interesting. I would say for those that are interested in the occult, though, it's important to acknowledge the fire and brimstone perspective on contact with spirits. With the dead or demons or whatever, and the fact that it's about demonology, technically speaking. It talks about sort of the form and function of Satan from that Christian perspective, the difference between demons and devils, like the use of the term devils, it interprets it in the biblical sense and says, well, it doesn't mean the devil, it means literally, if it's plural, it means these lesser demons that he controls. So it's an interesting work, fairly well written. Of course, I don't agree with most of its sum and substance, but it's still an important sort of little occult work, which is basically what it is. It's talking about that same material, and it's also important not to just have pro-spiritualist literature, I think, because I'm not a spiritualist, so it sort of makes sense to have a little balance there. Again, link in the description of my edition of this work on Amazon. Second and third links to my books, blogs. I have about 24 works of demonology there, so it's quite extensive. You won't run out of reading material for a while, so go whole hog. That's about all. Peace out.